Hi, I'm Katie Barajas. I am a senior at Cornell University studying applied and engineering physics, also known as just applied physics. Fancy titles, but it's just physics. And I'm from Los Angeles, California. And so I grew up in the suburbs of LA. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley. And so it felt like a very tight-knit community. I went to public school throughout my entire educational career until university. And so just like by the nature of where I lived, I kind of went to the same school as my friends from elementary school. And then we matriculated to a different school, and we all just stayed as like a cohort. So part of the reason why I decided to apply to schools far away was because I wanted to experience something new. And Cornell, I never thought Cornell would be an option, but it just so happens that I was really blessed and like privileged to get into a school like this. And so I grew up low income and middle class throughout my life. And education has always been something that my parents put in the forefront of my mind, and something that I've always strived to do well in and succeed, and also just have fun with it. Not put too much stress on myself in school, but also like try to learn and grasp and be a sponge. And the reason why I chose physics actually was because I didn't really know what I wanted to do going into college. My parents hadn't even gotten really much education back in their respective states, or back in their respective countries. My dad's from Mexico, my mom's from Nicaragua. And so I grew up with tough parents, but also tough parents because they strived for like achieving the American dream, and always wanting the best for me, and doing so many sacrifices for me to help me get to a place like this. And so when they say like it takes a village, it really does. There's been a lot of different moments that have just made me like reflect and know that like this going to this school was the right decision for me. Um, Part of that is just like the calmness and the nature. And sometimes I just walk around and just look, and I feel like I'm in a movie. Like I still can't believe I'm at Cornell. So the reason why I decided to go to Cornell was because I knew they were huge in optics and biophysics. So I thought, hey, this is kind of like almost the perfect place for me to grow and develop as a student. Albeit as an undergrad, you are taking a lot of classes and learning the grunt work, but in order to do research in the future, you need your undergraduate foundation. And that's something that as a freshman, I was just very gung ho, like, I want to go do research, I want to go change the world. But then I had to realize, wait, I don't know anything yet. And so I think a lot of my time at Cornell has been me learning more about what I don't know, and always striving to gain more understanding, and knowing that like I'll never be an expert in the field or in any fields really, but that I'm always there to learn and always there to grow. Cornell has taught me a lot about how to grow from failure, how to grow from facing an obstacle or facing a challenge, and things that I didn't learn growing up as like a first gen student. I've learned here at Cornell, learning how to navigate a space where a lot of the times like you are the only. So for me, like as a woman in physics and a woman of color in physics, I haven't really found many mentors, but I've found many people who were able to support me and advocate for me in these spaces. And so I think Cornell has definitely played a huge influence in me, like working towards finding spaces so that I could uplift others as well. And I felt very supported here. So I think that's something that's been really great. But in terms of the college selection process, I never thought I would get into a school like Cornell. Maybe it's with imposter syndrome, with me growing up having really no experience with the college process, not knowing, for example, in high school, like I didn't know you could get a degree past a bachelor's, and then I learned about research, and then I learned that you can get a doctorate, and I just thought this was all amazing. It was all blowing my mind. But yeah, I think at the end of high school, when I was applying to college, I was very, very negative. I thought that I wouldn't get into any school. Like I I thought that college wasn't for me. I thought that maybe it would be better to like find a different career path, like not pursue STEM, because I felt intimidated. And I think that's all for me. That was all a byproduct of imposter syndrome. And yes, that doesn't go away, but I've learned to give myself more credit where credit is due. And I've also learned to recognize like where I need to grow. And so when applying to all these different schools, I just said, you know what? I'm just going to submit these applications and see what happens. And Cornell happened to be one of the schools that I got into. And the reason why I ended up coming here was not only because of their great physics program and their great research in optics, but also because I kind of just fell in love with the campus and fell in love with the friendly vibes over here. After just stepping on campus and feeling the love and support in the College of Engineering, it just blew me away. I don't think I've felt that when I was visiting like other schools in the past. Although like now I know that engineering is all about collaboration, all about working together, all about learning from others who have different skill sets than you. But feeling this homey environment at Cornell definitely made me know that it was the right place for me. So growing up, I grew up in Los Angeles and I grew up in the public school system. And so I knew all of my friends for essentially my entire life. And coming here, I had to start over. Part of me wanted a fresh start, but also it's scary coming into a new place where you don't know anybody at all. And I think part of the ways that I found communities, and whether I stayed with them or left or found other communities, was one through joining different clubs, but also joining different project teams and like doing research for a bit. So I think my freshman year, I joined a project team in actually the mechanical engineering department, Cornell Baja Racing, where students come together and build a car and race that car in a competition. And that's where I made some of my best friends my first like 2 years of college. Like when we weren't working on homework or when we weren't working on building this car, we were just having fun, chuckling, running around the engineering building, just being kids, honestly. I think I've never felt more like a kid ever in my life than I did in college, because it felt like so freeing to just run around the engineering building and like fly a drone through the engineering building, throw paper airplanes around the engineering building. Like it's always been like there was a lot of fun times and also a lot of work. But I think having that balance just made that time like so much more memorable. But after I left that project team, because I realized that like, oh, I don't want to become a mechanical engineer, and I want to explore more of my interest in research. I then moved on to like a research group, and there aren't too many undergrads in the lab that I joined. So I think that space was more for my own like academic and personal development. But in like other ways that I found spaces on campus to like grow as a person, and also like not holds back from showing that like, hey, I'm Mexican. I love listening to my mariachi. Like I love just like dancing everywhere. Was just like finding other groups on campus that also like valued those like valued those sides of me as well. I joined intergroup dialogue project where it was a group of students and we all come and talk about identity development. We talk about like understanding how racism, sexism, sexual orientation, like all these different identities impact us as people. And learning more about my peers on that level just made Cornell also feel even more homey, because I get tired of talking about equations all day and I just want to know people as people. And so I think that was a really good space for me that I was a part of for a little bit. I think my most long lasting community here at Cornell has actually been the place where I live. It's the Equity and Engagement Living Center or Living Community. And it's a program house focused on social justice where students come together and think about ways in which they can give back to the community. And I've made some of my best friends here. We often, like every Friday night, we just come and like watch there's movies in the living room. We just talk about anything and everything. I don't know. I think having this community that I've been a part of for 3 years and has really allowed me to make my own home at Cornell. Like I always say, like, oh, after class, I'm going home now, which is my dorm and my living center. And that's just been something that's been really, really nice. I didn't take advantage of all the resources that Cornell offers to first gen and low income students that I really wish that I, one, knew of before, and two, had taken the time to join, because there is a community out there of people who have had experiences just like you, and just like me. And I think hearing about those experiences as an underclassman would have been super valuable for me to, like, one, combat imposter syndrome, but also know that there are people out there to support you and who will always uplift you, even if they barely know you. So, for example, so I'm always speaking about science because that's what I'm in. But SACNA is the Society for the Advancement of Chicanos and Native Americans in Science. They are full of a loving cohort of undergrads and graduate students who are always there to talk very candidly about their experiences in science, talk about what it's like to be a woman of color in STEM, about what it's like to be an underrepresented minority, talk about what it's like to jump from institutions that maybe didn't give them enough academic support, and then coming to an institution like Cornell where things can be tough, things can be challenging, and there's a beauty in the challenge, but also challenges are hard. You need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps, and also learn how to ask for help when you need help, and not just being like, okay, I can do this all by myself. Because really, I think I couldn't have gone through Cornell without support from my friends, without support from other faculty, without support from staff. So I think definitely look out for different resources that are available to you. Like, things won't just come to you. Sometimes you have to seek them out yourself. So the first generation, I think it's FGSS, First Generation Society of Students. I don't fully remember what that acronym stands for because there's a lot of acronyms here at Cornell, but they're also a group of undergrads who actually collaborate with other students from other Ivy Leagues who come from similar backgrounds. And I think that's another way to build a great network of people who can understand you and understand how to get through institutions like Cornell, because it's tough. But I think you also come out with a lot of great experiences, tools, and knowledge. And I think like pursuing those resources and actively taking advantage of them, not just being like, oh, I know there's this club out there. But once you go to a meeting and meet the students and see yourself in some of their stories, I think it becomes more real, and you realize, hey, like, these are people that I can lean on, and then also they can lean on me if they ever need support. So I think definitely take advantage of all the resources that you have time for and you see fit for your time here. I'm thinking back to when I was a freshman and I was very wide-eyed, and I'm still wide-eyed, so that's good. I was a freshman, I was very wide-eyed. I really wanted to pursue a lot of different opportunities and see what was out there in the world. And Cornell gave me the platform to do so. I was able to explore and do so freely without being restricted to saying like, hey, you're tied down to a major or you're tied down to this. And so that was great, and that was really illuminating. And I think after finding my niche and finding and realizing like what I really wanted to pursue and study here, I think I'm really glad that I still ended where I'm still very wide-eyed and curious about the world and curious about knowing more and curious about figuring out what's the next frontier and what's up next to study and what's next to learn and speak about and teach others about. I think for me, Cornell has really impacted me in terms of like my own personal development. I came in very shy, not willing to speak up or speak out about my own thoughts and beliefs, and not even like willing to speak up in class. I mean, like, hey, like I actually know the answer to that, but I'm scared. Um, I I think Cornell has allowed me to blossom and not be afraid to speak up for myself, speak out for others, and I think I don't know. I feel like it's kind of tough. Like I'm noticing more and more, like as I'm ending my career and moving on to something else. I'm realizing that it's tough to be a woman in science. I find that like the field that I'm really interested in is very, very heavily saturated by people who don't look like me. And I think Cornell given me has given me the confidence to speak up for myself. And I think the only reason why that happened is because I feel like this could have happened to anybody at any other university, but I think I was able to become more confident in myself here because of having really supportive mentors and and joining clubs that allowed me to develop my own communication skills. I think I've grown the most that I have ever in my life at Cornell. And I think part of that was being away from home and not being afraid to explore different spaces here at Cornell. I think a big way that Cornell has impacted me has been instilling this fearlessness to just go out there, take things day by day, but also not being afraid to saying like, hey, this is what I want to do. And not being afraid to dive deep in what you want to do and what you want to specialize in. And so I think Cornell has allowed me to explore many different fields and also find my niche. And I think having that duality has allowed me to not be afraid to use what I know from my specific skill set and apply it to so many different things, and also really live for learning from others. I think a big thing for me is always valuing um, how much everybody has the ability to contribute to the world, how much everybody has the ability to impact you in your life, but also that you can do the same. And it's kind of scary to think that, but I think that's a big way that Cornell has impacted me, not being afraid to go out there and just do whatever I want to do, but also really being like a lifelong learner. I always think a lot about how my upbringing has impacted my time here, and how a big thing that I've learned here is to combat imposter syndrome, because at the end of the day, I I am a scientist and I have the platform and the tools and the ability to do scientific work and make something new, make something fresh. And I think growing up, I was always told like, hey, like you're a woman, like I I don't think you should go into engineering. Like I don't think you should like, do you really want to do science? And so I think coming one far away from home and also pursuing a major that I was always scared to pursue, but then ended up just saying like, hey, I'm going to do it anyways, has allowed me to realize like, okay, I can push myself to different limits, but also like these are all tangible things that I can accomplish and I can go after. So I think for me, like a big thing that I've learned here is to not let your past define your future and to not be afraid to try new things. I think that's something that I'm going to live by, and not just say like, hey, like just because I grew up with like just because I grew up in a family where nobody went to college, or just because I grew up well in the suburbs of LA, but like where yes, a lot of my friends did like pursue a college degree, but also a lot of them didn't. And so just knowing that like my background doesn't influence where I can be tomorrow. Yes, it does have some impact. And yes, like I've had the privilege of having a lot of mentors and people who were able to uplift me from different circumstances. But I think knowing that like you've had the strength to overcome many different obstacles in your past, that you can come over here and do the same, and also learn more and have a support system here as well that can help you get to that next step. And knowing that like you don't have to know what you're going to do with the rest of your life, or you don't have to know like what you want to do in college, knowing that like you can find that eventually, like it'll happen. You're going to blink an eye and just say, hey, I'm a physics major now. Yesterday I was a undeclared student. Now I'm a physics major. I think, I don't know, some of the like the best advice that I've received from professors is to stop worrying and just sit and seep in some of the moments that you have here, some of the things that you learn in your courses. Just sit down, relax, and breathe. And you will have the opportunity to just go on and do what you've been dreaming of if you just stop worrying and let go a little bit. That's something that that has like really resonated with me. What am I gonna miss about Cornell? Oh man, so many things. I think, well, first of all, Ithaca is such a beautiful place. Well, it's a gorgeous place, no pun intended. But I'm going to miss just walking around campus, smelling the fresh air, looking at the trees, looking at the buildings. But I think what I'm going to miss more is actually the people. I think the people here have really like shaped who I am today, to a certain extent. And I just the friends that I've made here, I'm really going to miss them. Um, I'm going to miss just like casual fun talks. I'm going to miss being in a university setting. I think there's something about being in a college campus that has so much energy to it. Like everyone's working towards their own goals and their own careers, but also like knowing when like to have a balance, to have fun, and just to let go. I'm going to miss not having as many responsibilities. Um, but yeah, I'm going to miss campus and people. I think that's really what I'm going to miss here. And just the little quirks of Ithaca. There's a lot of cool places to see, that you don't get on the West Coast. There's a lot of really cool hiking places. There's a lot of good food too, actually, which is surprising. Someone from Los Angeles, great food down there. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna miss the people the most. Long car rides to go hiking random places. Uh, just having fun on campus and just living in the moment. Yeah.